Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Night Live with independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator Teresa Harper in the USA. Thank you for joining me tonight. Sorry I'm a minute late. I went to go live and realized I didn't have my headphones hooked up, and then Facebook moved things around on me. Got this nice little notice that they've moved things around, so let's see if I can see who's on. There we go. And yay, go ahead and comment and let me know that you're here and where you're watching from. This is the current host code, RZDCZ9B2. When placing orders under 150 or less, please use that host code. Hello, Tracy. Hello, Elaine. It's been quite some time since I've seen you on. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for watching. These are the two stamp sets that we'll be using tonight. Oh, actually, there's a couple more, but these are the ones I'm going to focus on. Because, of course, I can't just use one stamp set on a card. That would be too easy. Hello, Cynthia. So glad you could join us. I hope you were healthy, Elaine, and just on vacation. And if not, we're so happy you're back and healthy. All right, so I've got a few housekeeping things I just want to go over quickly because most of these we went over last week. I just want to remind you of the Waves of the Ocean promotion, which is available from the beginning of March and will go through the 2nd of May. In this promotion, the Waves of the Ocean Designer Series paper, blue foil specialty paper, and the Rhinestone Waves Basic Jewels are while supplies last. The stamp and die bundle will be available in the new annual catalog, which will come out on May 3rd. Okay, so we've got that. The All Together collection has been available since the beginning of February, although the collection itself has been unorderable due to the status of some of the natural tone Stampin' blends. Those are expected to be back in stock tentatively the week of the 4th of April. So then this collection then would be available again. But at this point, May 2nd, it's supposed to end, and the only things that will be in the new annual catalog are the natural tones. So if this stamp and die set and this designer series paper interests you, it would behoove you to get it sooner rather than later. Okay, so there's that. And then we have our Savings Are in Bloom promotion. This is where the mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, this cutie little patootie machine here, mini but mighty, die cutting machine is on sale for 20% off, along with 13 bundles of products that will coordinate beautifully with those with the mini cut and emboss. Now, if you're looking for this in the online store, look under the products, sales and promotions, and then you'll specifically have to look for Savings Are in Bloom. Okay, and click on that and it will show you which ones are on sale. All right, and that runs through the end of March. And then just to let you know, they have released a new kit. And when I checked earlier this afternoon, the Robot Buddies card kit was still available. So I just wanted to show you what that is, and you'll have to check the kits collection in the online store. All right, so that is that. Oh, Elaine, I'm so sorry to hear that. Prayers and hugs. It's a hard hard time. So sorry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And our first project tonight is going to use some techniques. We're going to use some blending, and we're going to do some stamping, but we are going to start with the blending. So our card base is Mossy Meadow, and this is 5.5 by 8.5. Okay, and I've scored it at 4 1/4 in the middle. Then you're going to need a piece of basic white that is 4 by 5 1/4. You also will need a piece of copier paper or a very large post-it note. I've cut my copier paper at the same size as my 4 by 5 1/4. And I've got a little bit of, do I have a little bit of adhesive? Yeah, a little bit of removable adhesive on this so that it doesn't move. And I'm just going to set that down there like that. I'm also going to, just to try to help make sure I don't have any issues, I'm going to take a piece of post-it tape and I'm going to secure that just a little bit further because I don't want that moving. So I'm just going to put it on my copier paper and run it around to the back, and that way I'll be sure not to get any adhesive where I don't want it. Okay, so we're going to need a piece of scrap paper. So that we can rub our ink off. And for this, we're going to start with Old Olive, a little bit of Smoky Slate, and we're going to put some Balmy Blue in here. Okay, so we're going to have Old Olive on the bottom, Balmy Blue, and then Smoky Slate. And I'm doing this backwards because I'm working backwards. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my Balmy Blue and my blending brush. Okay. And if you're wondering where my little color tags come from, this is where they come from. It's Etsy.com, Whimsical Wishes US, and the gal's name is Pamela Gann. And I love these because they're nice and big and you're not trying to find them. Okay, so I just said I was starting with Smoky or Old Olive, didn't I? Oops. Okay, well, let's just set that aside. And I set it right in the ink. That was good. Okay, so let's get our Old Olive out. That's what we need. Okay, so I'm going to rub that off a little bit. I'm going to start in the bottom. Okay. I'm going to put a little bit of Old Olive down here. I don't want this to be too dark. I'm going to put some Old Olive in. I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way in that. I use the stitch rectangle to cut a hole in the center, and this is the 3rd largest stitch rectangle in our collection, so it's this size right here. Okay, that 3rd one. Now, if you don't have the stitch rectangles, you could still do this with your trimmer. Okay, so let's see. I want that to be just real light. All right, so we're going to go with that. We're going to set that aside for the moment. And let me get my ink off of the back of my brush so I don't stick my finger in it. And you can see I set the brush down right in the ink. Okay, and this Simply Chamois case also came from that Whimsical Wishes US. She custom made that for me and it's now in the store. Okay, so we're going to put Balmy Blue down. And I want to put this in the middle. And I'm going to blend that into my Old Olive. Okay, can you guys see? Are we frozen? My screen looks frozen. So am I frozen? Let me reset that. Okay, there we go. For some reason, my Facebook stopped working. Okay, on my laptop. Made me think that you guys weren't there anymore. Maybe I was talking to myself totally. Okay, so I've got a little bit of Balmy Blue in there. And then I'm going to take some Smoky Slate. And again, I'm going to rotate this around. And then I'm just going to put some Smoky Slate up in my sky. All right. And I know that doesn't look like a lot, but when we remove this mask, whoa, got to be careful. Okay, so let's take a peek and see what we have. I'm going to grab my Take Your Pick tool and get underneath that Post-it tape so I can pull that off. Beautiful. Okay, that's exactly what we want. And I can set that aside and I can use it again another time, or I can cut myself another one, but as you can tell, I'm going to reuse it because I've done that. I want to make sure I don't have any of the temporary adhesive still on here because we will be stamping in this border area. Okay, so make sure that everything's going to work. Okay, so with our paper in the right orientation, we're going to grab our bear and what did I do with my sample card so I can see what I'm supposed to be doing here? All right, so we're going to take soft suede and we're going to stamp our bear. And this is one of those, I believe this is a distinctive set, photorealistic. I'm going to put my bear right down here and I'm going below that mat I just made, but not too far because I still want to put a shadow underneath that bear. Okay, so I've got my bear in. All right. And then while I've got my ink on there, I'm going to take a scrap piece of basic white and I'm going to ink my bear up again in the same soft suede. And if I hadn't already done it, I would also do that on a piece of copier paper or masking paper. And then I would fussy cut out that bear, which I've already done. And by doing it in this order now, I've given my bear enough time to dry completely. So I'm going to put this right over my mask, right over the top of my bear. Like so. And I don't need to be so picky about his backside. Okay. And then I don't think I took out the stamp I needed. I did not. Okay. We're going to take that from Grassy Grove, this big foliage area. And I need my big long block. And we're going to put this down. And we're going to ink this up in Mossy Meadow. And this is a long stamp. And we're not going to use a good share of it. We're just going to place this down on here. And along the bottom line of our inking, we're just going to put this down on top of our bear, and so that it goes clear to the left edge. Okay, give that a press and let that ink soak into the paper. And then we'll lift it straight up. And we've got that. Okay, so let's go ahead and close up our ink pad. All right, next we're going to take from, hello Lynette, from After the Storm. I'm going to take the Sunshine Ray image and some crushed curry. And I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to place it so that it comes down almost to the bear's nose there, but up like it's coming from the upper left corner. Okay. And I'm going to put this down like so. All right. So now I've got my rays of the sun. And I think I can put these out of our way. Just clean up this area just a little. All right. So now we're going to take some of the, I ran out of blocks. I'm going to take the two clouds from After the Storm and empty some blocks that I have out actually for the next project. And we'll put these on. Okay, and then we're going to take some smoky slate. And actually, I don't think I'm going to use this big one. I think I'm just going to use the little one today. I'm going to take some smoky slate and I'm going to ink that up and I'm going to stamp it off. I'm going to stamp a cloud there, stamp another cloud about there. I'm stamping off each time, cloud and a cloud. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove my mask here. And I'm going to set that aside because that masking paper takes a bit to dry. So now this is what we have. I'm going to take my basic gray ink and my sentiment Oh, I can't find it because I'm not looking in the right stamp case. From After the Storm. All right, gotta get. If you have trouble getting these newer stamps up, take the little spatula, and you can do it with the spatula end of take your pick tool, and just get up underneath that sticker, and it'll pop right up off of there for you. And that way you won't rip anything. So I'm gonna line this up on my grid paper, and then put it on my block. I'm going to use the basic gray ink, and I'm going to test that out to make sure that it's fairly straight. And then I'm going to stamp this right up here in the corner here. And I'm going to let that sit and soak into the paper. All right, that's good. Okay. Now, to finish this off, we're going to take this bear, and we're going to fussy cut this bear. But I'm not going to worry about his toenails or any of this extra fur stuff because we stamped it on our project. We don't have to worry about any of those things because they are going to show up around him as if it were there, giving it a little bit of dimension. Okay, so I want to make sure I don't have any white showing when I fussy cut this. Cut off the excess so that I'm not fighting the paper. Give that a quick fussy cut. And this is one of the easiest ways to cut animals because you don't have to worry about any of that fur if you already stamped it down where you want it. You can do the same thing with antennas on butterflies, and you stamp those down first, then you don't have to worry about cutting out those antennae. Okay. Almost done fussy cutting here. That didn't take too long. All right. So we are ready to add this to our card base. So we're going to give that a good burnish on, fold that and burnish it on that score line. Okay. And then this card, of course, is landscape. So we're just going to add this to our paper with some Stampin' Seal. Center that up as best we can. Then we're going to take that bear and some Stampin' Dimensionals. We're going to pop him up. Got that a little too close to his leg opening there. I usually do overkill on dimensionals, if you know me. I still think I need one in the middle here. Just don't want them to sag when I mail them. And then my bear has a big old sway in his belly. Okay, now I can add this to my bear there. I can still see all my fur and his toenails. And there we are. Okay, for the inside of this card, I'm not putting a sentiment, but I did stamp a bear, and this is a 3 5/8 by 4 7/8 inch piece. Because even the darkest night will pass and the sun will rise, I can send for many reasons. I can make it a get well card. Somebody who's going through a tough time. All right. So there we have it. And for the envelope, I've taken one of the other images from Grassy Grove and stamped it in Old Olive. Then I took a dry blender pen and wiped off the flowers and then colored the flowers with my Stampin' Right marker in crushed curry and stamped it down. So now we have this set for our first card. Okay, so I'm going to clean up a couple of stamps so I can empty some blocks real quick while you're looking at that. Oh, thank you, Elaine. I'm so glad you like that. Certainly glad I can be a distraction tonight. Oh, you know what I forgot to do before I put that down? So I was supposed to stamp, but you don't even know. I was going to stamp the shadow underneath the bear, but I've already attached him and I don't want to rip my cards, so that was supposed to be done before I put my bear down. All right. When you make your card, you can do that to yours. Okay, so I've got that. All right, now I can have those blocks and we can get started with our next card. Let me pull those off. I love this After the Storm stamp set. This is $1 Million Achiever stamp set, in case you didn't know, by France Martin. Whenever you get to $1 million, you get to design a stamp set, and this was hers, and I really like it. Okay. I think I cleaned all those, and I can put that away because we won't need that one for our next project. All right, and that leaves me blocks. Yay! All right. So let's go ahead and we'll bring in our next project. And our next project is a fun fold card. And it also uses the Wildlife Wonder stamp set. Okay, so let's get our supplies out for that. This one's going to use the Beauty of the Friendship along with the Wildlife Wonder. We're going to use the bear out of this one. And I think, oh, and then the owl for the inside. And this little piece here from the Wildlife Wonder. And then we're going to be using these two images and this one from the Beauty of Friendship along with the dies that coordinate. Okay, so I'm going to start with a card base in Evening Evergreen. Now this card base is not your average size card base. This is 5.5 by 7.5. So really all I did was I cut a sheet of evening evergreen in half. Then I scored it at 4.25, just like I normally would, and then I cut 1 inch off of the edge. Okay, and that's going to make our fun fold card base. So we're going to go ahead and give this a press. I'm going to set that aside because we're not going to need that for a bit. We have a piece of the New Horizons Designer Series paper, and this is the piece that has, I love this Designer Series paper. This is a piece that just has green, but on this other side it has this beautiful scene. We're going to use this piece for the tree branches. If you haven't seen this paper is beautiful and so easy to make scenes with. I mean, you could easily cut a piece of this at 4.25 or at 4 by 5.25, put a bear on it and a tree and call it good. And it would be beautiful. Or just put a bear or the fox or whatever and a sentiment and you're good to go. That's how easy that is. Okay? And I could have done that, but that's not quite my style. I thought it would be really fun to turn this into a fun fold. So we have this piece, and this piece doesn't need to be, this is 3 by 6, but it doesn't need to be this big. Really, you only need about 2.5, just big enough for your tree. Really, that's all you need. So 2.5 by 3 would be good, probably, to get that in there. Then you do need a piece of the Designer Series paper, and this time I'm using this piece, and I've cut this at 3 by 5.25, and I cut the 5.25 strategically so that I could get the section that I wanted. So I did cut a little off the top and a little off the bottom. Then you'll need another piece of that. I just use the same Designer Series paper. That's 1 inch by 5.25. And then I'm using a different piece that is 2 and 5. No, this is 2.5 by, where's my measurement? By 3 3/8. And we're going to use this in landscape. Okay. So these are our DSP pieces that we'll be using. We are going to do a little bit of stamping on here. This piece we're going to go ahead and add to our inside panel. And our inside panel is 4 by 5.25. Yep, 4 by 5.25. Wanted to make sure I had the right piece. And I'm just going to place this 1 inch strip right along the right edge of my inside panel. Okay, so let's get some Stampin' Seal. And I'm just going to line up those corners and the edge, and that is good. Okay, well, while we're working on this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the owl from Wildlife Wonder and Smoky Slate. Okay. And I'm going to ink this up in Smoky Slate. And then I'm going to take my soft suede Stampin' Right marker, and I'm going to take my marker to the stamp and go right over that Smoky Slate on the wood portion that the owl is sitting on. And that will not hurt my Stampin' Right marker. And then I'm just going to place this right down here in the left corner. Okay, so that I have that. Now, I didn't put a sentiment on the inside of this either because this is going to be a thinking of you card. And again, I can think of you for a lot of things, a happy birthday, a sympathy, a get well. There's a lot of things I can use that for. So I'm going to set this aside for the moment because we need to prepare our card base again so that we can add this strip. So now we have some Blackberry Bliss cardstock, and this piece of Blackberry Bliss is cut at 3 1/8 by 5 3/8, and we're going to mat this. It's just 1/8 of an inch bigger from our DSP, and these will get matted together, but we're not going to do that right at this moment. Then we have another piece of Blackberry Bliss, and this piece is cut at 2 5/8 by 4. Okay, then we need to score this at 1/2 of an inch. All right, so I've already scored that at 1/2 inch, and I'm going to burnish that. So this is what our piece looks like. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and put some tear and tape on this 1/2 inch strip. Okay, see how this works out. There we go. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for just a minute. I'm going to take this piece of my Designer Series paper, and I'm going to take that shadow from the bear, and I'm going to remember to add it this time. So I'm going to take some Sahara Sand ink, and I'm going to ink this up. I'm going to get a piece of scratch paper because I don't want this to be very, very dark. And I'm just going to ink that up. And I'm going to look to see how dark that's going to be. Probably a little darker than I want, so I'm going to ink it up. And I'm going to stamp this off and then put it right along the bottom of this piece. Just like that. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a real faint shadow. Okay. Then we can add this to this piece here. Our Blackberry Bliss, we'll add, and it will have also a very thin border all the way around. We're just going to center that up. And now we're ready to add this to our card base. So I'm going to remove the release paper. I don't know, Tracy, why you haven't gotten this paper. I would get it if I were you. I believe when I looked last time it's on low inventory, and it is fabulous paper. Okay, so I'm going to remove the release backing, and I'm going to take that sticky part, and normally you would put this, you would center it top to bottom, but I'm going to bring it down just a little bit less than center toward the end, and I'm going to try and line that up. Now, if I get it right in the center, it's not really critical. It's just where I preferred to have it. Lift that back up because it's not quite where I want it to be. I'll fold that down. Lay that right along the edge. and give it a press. And then I'm going to give that a good burnish. Okay, so now this is what we have thus far. Now it's time to go ahead and add our inside panel, and we're going to set this right in here, and we're going to center it, and that's going to cover up our Blackberry Bliss, so you're not even going to see that. Now let's make sure I've got this cut properly before I do that. Okay, and that's just going to seal that in. And we're just going to center that up as best we can. Okay, so here we are at this point. All right. So we've got a little bit more stamping to do. Let's go ahead and get that done. We're going to stamp on this piece of paper, but before we stamp on here, I want to put my tree together. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp, get rid of that stamp. I'm going to stamp my tree leaves, and I'm going to stamp these in Evening Evergreen. What did I do with oh, there's my soft suede. I need that too. Okay, so we're going to get Evening Evergreen. I'm going to start with my more detailed tree. And I'm going to put this in full strength on this piece of Designer Series paper. And I'm going to use this upper portion. And I'm just going to stamp this down where I have enough room. And I'm going to let that soak in for a minute. Okay. And then I'm going to take my outline piece and I'm going to stamp that off. And then I'm going to line this up. And give that a press. Let that ink soak into that paper. All right. Then we've got to run some things through the die cut machine. So let's go ahead, and we've got 2 pieces of basic white, and you could do it probably on this one, but I don't want to do it twice, so I'm going to make sure that I just have to do it once. I'm going to use the 2 pieces. I'm going to ink up this tree trunk and branches in the soft suede, and I'm just going to stamp that down. And let's go ahead and see if maybe we can do this all at once. That would be okay if we could. Then we're going to take Thinking of You. And this comes from The Beauty of Friendship. And I'm going to get out I'm going to put this in a die. I'm going to cut this out with a die. But because my sentiment is long and I need to stack it, I need to see about where I need to be here. So I'm just going to put that on my paper just to eyeball it. And then I'm going to get my Evening Evergreen ink. And I'm going to ink up just the thinking. And this stamp is pretty easy to do that, to just put it along the edge of the pad. Ink up the thinking, and because it's photopolymer, you can see what you're doing there. And if I stamp this about right here, I should be good. Okay, then I'm going to quickly clean that off. And then I want to dry it off because I don't want to get any residue left. And then I'm going to turn it and ink up the Of You. Okay, And you could do this in 2 separate colors if you like. I decided to just do it in the one. And I'm going to try and center that up like so. And then I can cut all of my pieces out because they're all done. I'm going to go ahead and trim this one off. I'm not sure I can really get them all on the mini at the same time. I probably will have to take 2 passes, but we're going to find out. Okay, so we're going to bring the mini in. We'll get some plates. And I use my gray plate, number 3, instead of the white plate. I find it works a little bit better for me. And I'm going to put this down here. And, oh, maybe we can do it. So we've got the die for this. I'm going to get just a little bit of Post-it tape. Now, if you don't get this cut out perfectly, it really doesn't matter because you use the designer series paper. Okay, then we're going to get the tree trunk. And on the tree trunk for this particular project, you want to pay close attention to the trunk itself. Not necessarily the branches are you so concerned about because you're not even going to see those. Okay, so we might need a new piece of Post-it tape. That one appears to be pretty worn. Okay, so we're just going to line that back up. And then I'm going to put my sentiment down here and line that up. And by using the Post-it tape, I should get it fairly straight. We hope. Okay? So now we're ready to run those pieces through our machine. And we need that top plate. Okay, with the mini, you need to stack your plates. So I've got my gray plate, then my my first acrylic plate, the bottom one is back, and then I'm going to put my top one right over the top of the gray. Okay, so I've got just a little bit of a lip here. Then I'm going to push this in until my handle engages, and then I'm just going to crank that through. And we've cut all of those pieces in one pass. Okay. And we are good to go here. So we'll just go ahead and put our dies away real quick. Don't put them down, put them away, and they won't get lost. Okay, so we've got that. And here are our pieces. And I just saved that Post-it tape for another use. You can keep reusing that stuff. And I just get that on Amazon. Or if you've got a Staples near you, you can do that too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add this, the branches to our tree here. I'm going to grab a silicone mat. And I'm just going to use some Stampin' Seal. And I'm going to place that right there on my tree. And I'm doing this now because this is going to help me with my stamping placement. Okay. So this is going to go here, and I want to make sure that my tree is going to show up above my piece here. I want to be able to put my sentiment in here, and it's going to be hidden. So my thinking of you is going to go in here, like so, and then I've got these pieces. So I'm going to slip that out like that. Then I've got this piece, and this is from the Wildlife Wonder set. Let me straighten it up on my block. Okay, and I'm going to take my Blackberry Bliss marker and my Evening Evergreen marker, and I'm going to color up this stamp. Okay, so I'm going to take the brush end, and I'm just going to use the side of the tip here, and I'm going to do the greenery on this. Okay, and then I'm going to switch to the Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to do my flowers. And if I got any of the Evening Evergreen on my flower, I'm just going to go right over the top. It's not going to hurt my marker. And if you're worried about it, just take and wipe your marker on a pad until it comes clean. Then I'm going to huff on it. And I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put one over here. I'm going to put this one on my paper here, and I'm going to do that same technique again. I'm going to ink that up with my marker. And then I'm going to ink up my greenery with my Evening Evergreen marker. I'm going to huff on that again. I'm going to put one of these right here like this. And one last time. And turn your stamp as you need to. And then I'm going to put this one right here. Okay. Now our pieces are ready for assembly. Okay. So we can take and set those. And I'm going to attach this to my Blackberry Bliss piece here. I'm going to center that up. And there's again a very thin margin. Okay. And then I'm going to add this. I'm going to open this all the way up. I'm going to add this to that left front piece. My Stampin' seal. All right. And now I can put my tree on. I want to put my tree on flat because it's going to go under that flap. And I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue for the bottom of my tree. My bottle's almost out. getting low. Okay, well, all right, I'm not going to fight that. Grab my silicone mat, Stampin' Seal, and make sure that I don't have any sticky on the side. And then again, I'm going to close this flap, put my tree in here. I just want to make sure that I don't want my trunk to show, and I want my tree to show. So I'm just going to center that up there like that. Make sure my trunk doesn't show at the bottom. And then I'm going to take my Thinking of You. And again, because I have this hidden under here and I want it to be flat, I'm going to grab my glue dots because I don't want to use Stampin' Dimensionals and put a bunch of height. So I'm going to use two glue dots on the right hand side of the sentiment. All right. And then I'm going to use regular glue or regular Stampin' Seal on the left. And I'm going to put my sentiment down here, like so. All right. So far so good. Now we're going to take our bear from the Wildlife Wonder, and again, we're going to stamp it on Whisper White or on Basic White. We're going to stamp it in Smoky Slate this time, and then we're going to fussy cut it. And I've already done that to save some time for us, so we didn't run too long. And I'm going to add my bear on with dimensionals because he's on the outside flap. Okay. And one more. Okay. Let's take our Take Your Pick tool. Pull those off a little faster. Okay, and then we can add this to our flap and make sure that he's standing on our shadow, like so. And last but not least, we're going to take one of the birds, and this is in the dies from Beauty of Friendship. I'll show you that die. It cuts out two birds at one time. So you get one that faces right and one that faces left. And I cut that out in Basic White. And then I'm going to take some Stampin' Right marker, or some Stampin' Blends. And I'm going to put a little gray granite along the bird's belly here. And then I'm going to take a little light Blackberry Bliss, and I'm going to run that next to the Smoky Slate. I'm going to put a little bit of light Mango Melody up here in the beak area. And if you don't have the retired Mango Melody, you can use the Daffodil Delight. And then I'm going to take light Misty Moonlight, and I'm going to color this in. And I'm running those colors together slightly. And I'm going to take just a bit of the dark Misty Moonlight and put just a few little darker lines just to look like he's got some definition in his feathers. And then to blend it all together, I'm going to take my colorless blender and I am just going to blend those. Okay, and that's going to bring those all together and give that bird some definition. Okay, and finally, I'm going to take my black Stampin' Right marker and I'm going to give that a little dot circle for the eye. Okay, and now I've taken this to this with just some Stampin' Blends. Okay, now what are we going to do with this little bird? We're going to take some mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and we're actually going to take the edges of the Stampin' Dimensional, and I'm not sure where my scissors went in this mess I've got going here. So we're just going to take some of the little edge piece and I'm going to cut a couple of little slices, and I mean little slices here. And I'm turning over my bird and I'm going to place this with his belly sitting here like he's in the tree. So I want to put one of these tiny little dimensional pieces at his beak at the top, and then I want to put another one along his back. So I want to leave the bottom area open so I can use this as a lock closure for my little piece here. So I'll just take and put this down here, his belly overlapping that enough that he's sitting on the tree, and the dimensionals are popping up the top, but yet I can lock that closure. Okay. For our envelope, I took and stamped an owl, and I left this owl all in the smoky slate. And there is our finished card. I hope you enjoyed those projects tonight. And, all right, let me refresh this just to see. I'm thinking I probably missed a bunch of things. So this is our card, and this is how it opens and looks. So that's our fun fold. And then we'll bring in our first card. And there we have our first card. All right. I hope you enjoyed those projects tonight. I sure enjoyed preparing them for you. If you'd like to place any orders, you can check out my online store at teresaharper.stampinup.net. And I've put the current host code in the description of this video. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you back here again on Tuesday night. Next Tuesday, it's spring break here, but I'll still be on. If you're home, stop and join me. I'll see you next Tuesday. Until next time, be happy, stay healthy, and happy stamping. Good night.